And delighted to say that this morning we are joined by broadcaster Sophie Nicolaou from the Highbury squad and the former Charlton and Millwall midfielder Josh Wright as well. Good morning to both of you, and we also want to hear from you this morning too by using the hashtag #EarlyKickoff on Twitter. Who will make the top four and why? That's what we want to know from you during the course of this show. So we'll start at Stamford Bridge last night. Sophie, quite a game, brilliant for the neutral and ultimately brilliantly for the Arsenal fans as well.
I wasn't expecting to beat Chelsea. Although we've had some good results against them, we lost the first game of the season in August. Prior to that, we had won 3 on the trot against them. I've done great against them in the FA Cups. Under Tuchel, they're a very organised team. They've been brilliant, of course, with all of their European success. But after losing so brutally to Crystal Palace, they stole our lunch money, losing to Southampton and losing to Brighton in the fashion that we did, to come out and put on that performance away from home. It was a brilliant result and it keeps us in the race.
Josh, in terms of the performance, obviously Chelsea, they came back twice to level things in the first half. Was this a case of Arsenal just being so good, or was it Chelsea underperforming?
I think it's a combination of both, and I don't like to take away credit when a team deserves the win, because I do think Arsenal deserved it on the night. But I think Chelsea, speaking of them first, they're going through the motions a little bit. They've obviously had the off-the-field troubles that they're probably still dealing with and feeling. But they're probably now in a position where nothing's guaranteed, but top 4, yeah, they're probably going to get 3rd place. And they've now got the FA Cup final to look forward to. And in the league, they're probably just coasting that little bit. But saying all that, I watched the game and I thought Arsenal were on the front foot. They were sharp. They looked like a team that had suffered over recent weeks and they needed a reaction. And I think Arteta got that from them. And it was one of them at half-time, what way was it going to go? But I think in the end, Arsenal deserved it. They were a little bit more on that front foot. So I would say it's a combination of both, but let's not take away the credit from Arsenal. They certainly deserved it on the night.
It's really interesting, isn't it, too, like when a team like Brentford, when they beat Chelsea, convincingly, the narrative becomes about the superior team in form not performing versus the team who's actually performed on the night, getting a great result. And I think sometimes we're all guilty of doing that. Same with Palace. They beat us, and they beat us badly. And the narrative became about us versus Palace's performance and what Patrick Vieira had kind of been doing there. So, to come out and win the way we did after the last few games we've had was, I think, it's all about us today, not about them.
Yeah, I think, Sophie, a big thing with what you're saying there is about, and this is so much in life, but we're talking football here, is who wants it more. It's who's got that bit more hunger and drive to want to get that result. Because when we talk about the Premier League especially, and those boys at the top, other than maybe City and Liverpool at the moment, there's not a lot in them. And it's about who turns up on the day, who's going to give that extra %. And I think we see that with Arsenal last night. And yes, they deserved it, but I just feel Chelsea are dealing with some problems at the moment. And they're a team that if you get after them and get at them in the right way, you can see, like last night, they're there for the taking. And fair play to Arsenal, they did that.
Sophie, Josh mentioned the words hunger and desire there. Did you see that in Eddie Nketiah's performance last night?
Yeah, I've absolutely grilled Eddie Nketiah, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans have. He scored in the League Cup this season. We've had a tremendous issue with, having a prolific goal scorer at the club. We all know about what's happened with Aubameyang. Lacazette hadn't scored in open play in 16 games. So for him to come into a very high stress and high pressure situation and do what he did last night, take his chances when he had them. We've been really poor at doing that. We couldn't see where the goals were going to come from after the Southampton match. So for him to come in and perform the way he did, he just had to do his job, and he did that. But I do not want to get into a scenario, Josh, where people start talking about Eddie being the answer up front for us next season, because this is the trap Arsenal fall into. Yeah.
He looked sharp last night, and those words, hunger, and felt like he deserved that chance and wanted to show it. And I thought he looked sharp. He was all about running. He was causing Chelsea problems. He was a nightmare for them on the night. And listen, is he the answer? That remains to be seen. But there's certainly a player in there, and fair play to him because he stretched them and he harried them. And I thought he was very good on the night, and he deserved his goal. So it was fair play to him, and long may that continue.
I just don't want to get caught in that trap, guys, you know, that trap. Arsenal fall into it a lot. Oh, we won the FA Cup, this team can go and challenge in the Premier League. Oh, we've won another FA Cup, we can go challenge. No, we need a striker, and we need a prolific striker, and the way to get that as well is, of course, to finish in a European spot.
Yeah, Arsenal fans, let us know what you think. Use that hashtag early kickoff on Twitter as well. And we're just going to talk about that moment of tension with a fan and Cesar Azpilicueta at the end of the game. Josh, I just wonder from a player's perspective, how hard is it not to respond to fans, particularly when they show their frustration?
Yeah, look, I see both sides, because fans are fans, and without them, there would be no football, in my opinion. And it's all about them at the game. They pay their money, and they've got a right to vent their anger and show their excitement. Well, obviously on the flip side. But for me, in my opinion, no one ever goes out into a football game, or very rarely, I've never really seen it, and want to lose for your own team, because you're out there, it's your own pride, but it's also your own success for the club. And the better you can do and the better the team can do is what everyone wants. But listen, he scored on the night. I know he then gave away the penalty, and I thought it was a penalty. It was a silly mistake from such an experienced player, but it's tough. It's very, very tough at the end of a game, especially when you've been suffering a little bit, and doesn't matter who you are, what level you're at. Those players have been feeling it recently. They've been going through a lot, and him being the captain of the football club, he'd have had to have taken a lot on his shoulders, and he's probably stressed. He's probably tense. And sometimes when you just hear things, we don't know what was directly said. I sort of was reading between the lines and could see it a bit. And I'm going to go with him on this one. And listen, I think he went over. I think he did the right thing. Sometimes you can ignore it and walk down the tunnel and forget it. But that shows passion. That shows that he wants to do well for Chelsea. He wants to do well for the club. And whatever he said, I think he squashed it in the correct way. And it is difficult. It's difficult when you take criticism, but we have to deal with it. We have to live with it. It's the industry that we're in. But there's a time and place. And I don't know what was said, but he did what he had to do. And it is tough to take sometimes.
Yeah, we fans sometimes, I think we feel that we have a right to behave the way we do, because, you know, we pay a lot of money to go to football. It's not cheap having a season ticket in the Premier League, especially. There are fans that come from around the world to come to see the Premier League. So that might be their one moment, to have that moment to kind of see players try to get their autograph after the game. But I agree with Josh in that I get upset when I lose to darts with my cousin. So I can't imagine how it feels, you know, coming off after giving everything. And let's be honest, Chelsea players looked exhausted last night. I think if there's a point of difference between the two, they've played a lot more football than us. They've had some, you know, high-octane games that they've had to go through over the last couple of weeks. So it's never good to see behaviour like that.
You just said it there, Sophie. It's what they've been through and the effort, and they did look shattered at the end of the night. And when you've given something in life, and we're talking football again, but it doesn't have to be football, when you've given everything and you've tried, and that word try, and you've left everything out there on the pitch, which I think those Chelsea players on the whole are, it's then when you get criticised, it's a bit like, well, hang on, what more can I do? It's not the fact of that I've not tried, I've given everything, and we're going through a difficult moment. That's when it hurts, because it's different, as I say, if they're not, but they are. And when it becomes a situation of what more can I do, that's when you get a little bit of reaction. And I think we're all human beings, it's only natural. And I don't think he was wrong to go and react the way he did. But at the same time, fans have got every right to vent their anger as well as their excitement. So there's a fine balance and there's a way of doing it, but it's a difficult part of the game that us players have to deal with.
Yeah, and I would agree with that in the sense that how it's handled afterwards and how the fan behaves. Of course, you know, none of us agree with abusive behaviour. So I think this is one for him to just move on, and he's done the right thing.
Josh, I wanted to talk to you about, you were talking about Chelsea looking tired physically with everything they've had over the last month or so. But what about from a player's perspective about how much they've been affected by everything else that's been going on at the club? I've heard some people who haven't been in a dressing room before saying, look, they go in, they're still getting paid. It's got nothing to do with them, the ownership. But do you think about it, and do you talk about things that are happening off the pitch within a dressing room?
Absolutely, Rob. And firstly, they've had a lot of games, a lot of football. So obviously that's a big factor, like other teams have as well. But I'm a big one that if you've got a settled off the field, so good owners, and we're talking owners here, but settled owners, settled fan base, whatever it might be associated with that football club, that takes weight and that takes pressure from the players day to day at the training ground, in the changing room, away from the place. And someone like captains or senior players have to deal with so much. And there'll still be a lot of meetings going on. There'll still be a lot of calls, late night phone calls, discussions, other players asking what's going on, what we're going to do, new contracts. There's so much more that goes into a playing career that people, or not so much fans, but people on the outside don't see. And this is the point we're just talking about just now. And there would have been a lot of pressure and a lot of moments where they just want to concentrate on football, come in, work hard, train, get in the gym, do what they've got to do, but they haven't been able to. They'd have had to have taken phone calls and meetings, as I say. So, no, absolutely, they'd have had a tough time. Listen, they're not directly involved, but still associated with it, and they'd have had to have dealt with it, more so some than others. But, yes, it would have taken some mental strength and made them a lot more sort of tired and fatigued, if you like, when it comes to playing the games, because they've got that distraction.
I think they've been lucky to have Thomas Tuchel at the helm during this time and this process. He has been under the spotlight and had to answer questions that he probably never wanted to. And a lot of the times, you know, we can kind of have a pop at managers, but what he's had to, you know, go through sitting in front of the press, and the press not just in the UK, but this is a global issue and global story. And I think that the right man was there at the right time to answer some very difficult questions. And I think he deserves credit for getting everyone through to this point and for them to still be as competitive as they have been in a lot of different competitions.
Yeah, we've had a tweet in from Westy who's watching, just picking up on what you were talking about, Sophie, with Nketiah. He says, really like Nketiah, but would rather him go and join another team. He says he's like Defoe and will hit peak in 3 years. He thinks Brighton would be perfect for him. He goes on to say that Arsenal need to sign 1 to 2 elite strikers or ones on the brink of it to progress, to dig out games like last Saturday and nick it. Westy, thank you for letting us know what you're thinking about that. We just want to talk about another striker, though, in Romelu Lukaku. Sophie, is his time up at Chelsea?
Wow, what a disastrous signing he has been for Chelsea. The investment that they've made, they've had no ROI on that at all. And you know, I think Lukaku played his best football. Obviously, he was a huge success in Italy, but when he was the main focal point up front at Everton, you know, we saw the best of him there. And I just don't think the way Chelsea like to play suits his game. But he's looked sluggish. He hasn't looked sharp, but he hasn't been given the opportunity to play to be able to do those things as well. And you just can't see him staying at Chelsea, can you, or being there next season. It just hasn't worked out. And, of course, there was the conflict, the interview last year, which I don't think helped the situation for him at all. So Lukaku was in demand last summer, but now I think Chelsea are going to find hard to get any decent transfer. I mean, there's going to be a team that comes in for him, but it has to be a team that wants to make him the focal point up front. And maybe going back to Italy is probably where he can play his best football.
That's the key one, Sophie. You said suiting the style, and he has to suit the style. Like many footballers, or most footballers, some can adapt, some can get involved in other stuff, but you have to play to his style. And I think we've seen that in certain sides that he's played in. And I just don't think he can handle, or he wants to be involved in this way Chelsea play and Thomas Tuchel plays, with the build-up and he's coming. He keeps coming to short to try and get on the ball, and he's lost that spark to get in behind. But I think with all that, as you said, I think the damage might be done here with what happened with the interview, and they're trying so hard now. You watch him last night, and he's doing stuff that's just not Lukaku. He's running, he's trying to run, he's trying to work hard, but he's over trying now. And where he's doing that, he's tensing, he's uptight, and he's probably not just relaxing when he gets that football. And once that happens, and that sets into someone, and it's very, very difficult as a player to get out of. And it might be a situation that, listen, does he get his head down in pre-season and come back and try? But I'd be more to the point that he'll probably have to move on now. And it has been a shame what's happened for him, but you need to play to his style, and he needs to relax, and he's certainly not doing that right now.
Yeah, more points in terms of strikers, a couple more in what Arsenal and what we've been talking about, Eddie Nketiah. Paul, thank you very much for getting in touch this morning. I'm an Arsenal supporter, 53 of my 58 years. We need a world-class goal scorer, without doubt, but with this team's inconsistencies, we can't attract one. I don't think our current squad has the players we need. Do they have the current players, or the players they need to finish top four? Both of you, starting with Josh, who takes fourth at the end of the season?
Well, I'm sorry, Sophie. I'm going to sway towards Spurs.
It's all going so well between you.
I know. I just think, looking at the fixtures, I think they had their blip last week against Brighton. they'd found some form before. I think with Harry Kane and Son up top and a few other players firing behind, I just think they're going to have that bit more about them in terms of strikers, like we're talking goals that win you games and get you over the line. So I'm just going to go with Spurs.
I'm going to stick with my boys. There's no doubt about that. I didn't think it was possible, but here's what I love, what I saw last night. We have a siege mentality back. And you haven't seen that at Arsenal for a long time, to overcome that adversity, to put in that type of performance, to stick together as a team. And Mikel Arteta, when you play the players in their positions and you don't put square pegs in round holes, look at what you can get done. And to see someone like Elneny come in, who's hardly played, and do well. You know, he's playing Xhaka in his position. Rob Holding came in and settled into the game and improved as we went. I think that we could get the results in these games coming up. There's something about this side that gets up for those types of, gets into, you know, the Man Uniteds, the West Hams, and that North London derby is going to be such a massive match. And I always felt that once that was rescheduled, it would come down to it. And I just don't think you can rule Arsenal out yet.